seed, which like would be the seeds that are inside a tomato. Somebody went to the trouble of washing seeds and drying them out and then packing them up. You can try them with your own seeds, and in fact it definitely does work, because I have tomatoes grown in flower beds that are grown from seeds that were in my compost. But anyway, these ones I came from GIY.ie. So GIY.ie had these little packets of seeds, and I planted them, and I actually found the label down there for once. I'm on the ball. The label is dated the 26th of March. So I know I planted them the 26th of March. I actually started them inside the house because I was worried that frost might get them when they were really small. So I started them inside the house. They were on a windowsill, and I've been minding them since. So you'd want to like your tomatoes, because like this is not something you'd be doing, you know, there is a little bit of work and minding and organising yourself to do it. So I love tomatoes, so it doesn't bother me. So they grow to about that height, and then you put them in the ground. With, you know, first of all, they're in tiny little pots, and they're really small. And when they get easy enough to handle, you put them into a decent sized pot, and you end up potting them on a couple of times probably before you put them into the ground. So like I say, there is a little bit of work, but once they're in, then they just look after themselves, to the extent that I kind of forget about them, because they're hidden by these other plants that you can't see here in this picture. They're hidden by other plants inside my greenhouse, so I do just kind of forget about them, throw a drop of water on them, or bribe a child to throw a drop of water on them, and leave them to their own devices. And what happens to me then is sometimes then I don't have them staked properly, because they do need to have support, because obviously tomatoes are fairly weighty, you know, they're water really, and these are they're not trees, they're soft green stemmed plants, so they do need support in order to hold the weight of the tomatoes. So you will need to have canes or some means of support. I just use these kind of bamboo canes. I took off a tie here, I'm not this bad. So this is the type of support I use. If you look at the, you know, people who are bigger into this, I see them using where they tie strings from the roof of their greenhouses down to the ground and down to pots and stuff. I haven't got that fancy. You don't need a greenhouse to grow tomatoes. You can grow a couple of plants out in a patio, or those small little plastic greenhouses, and you'll see those grow bags in different supermarkets and garden centres in the spring. But that doesn't work for me, because I'm in a very windy spot, and while they wouldn't, you know, after the frost is gone, they'd be fine from a temperature point of view, the wind would get them. I tried it years ago and was heartbroken, because they went just before they started being any use to me. So yeah, that's a bit soul destroying, that kind of thing. So they're in here. So once they're in here, I wash them every day, because there's no rainwater in here. Wash them every day. I feed them once a week. I'll explain that in a second. And as they get taller and taller, I support them by tying them with a bit of garden twine onto the stake, and that's it. Like, there's nothing much more to it than that. The only thing there is really that, you know, you can do to make sure that you're getting a decent crop is, they call it pinching out the side shoots, which actually is what it says in the tin in hindsight, but I wasn't fully sure, like, what's a side shoot? Is this a side shoot? Is that a side shoot? I didn't fully understand what a side shoot was for a while. I know now what they are. They are, and I'm very, this is why I untied this one, because I know sometimes when I show things from a distance you can't see them. So can you see here, this is the main stem coming up along here, and this is the branch. So this is where you'd want to be having flowers, and the flowers are what turn into the fruits, of course. And this thing here in the elbow or the armpit, this one, this is the side shoot. And all you need to do is pinch it out with your thumb and forefinger like that and discard it. And the reason why you do it is because if you don't do it, it'll keep creating these, and look, you can even see it happening on this one. It's creating branches on branches on branches. It'll keep branching off itself, and it'll make loads of flowers and loads of tomatoes, but none of them will get to a right size, because the plant really can't sustain. If you look at the narrowness of that plant and you're trying to get all this water and nutrition up from the ground up to it, you're like, you know, I mean, there's a limit to what it can do. So to give the yourself the best crop of decent tomatoes instead of having little marbles, what you do is you restrict what the plant is doing so that it can concentrate on giving you decent sized ones. And one of the things is taking off the growth that you don't need, and these are these side shoots. They grow so fast, like you'll be doing, you don't have to do it every day, but do it once a week when you be doing the feeding, because you think you've it done and you're on the ball, and the next thing you come in and there's a huge branch growing out of an elbow that you didn't spot. So you kind of have to methodically start at the top or the bottom and work your way up every time to see has something sprouted, because even when you've them pinched out, another one will start growing again eventually. But you know what? It's fierce, satisfying, it's no hard work, and they smell, I think they smell absolutely fabulous. They don't even smell like tomatoes. I don't know, they smell really fresh. It's a lovely smell anyway. Tomato plants smell gorgeous. I love it. So that is the pinching out the side shoots. Now, the other thing you can do is, obviously they're compostable side shoots because they're not a weed, so it can go into your compost if you have compost. If you don't have compost, don't worry about it. Down at the very bottom here, you can see this is my first little branch here with a couple of, now let's be fair, fairly miserable looking tomatoes, but that is the first fruit producing branch on my plant. They say to take all the leaves below that off. Now that can be a bit heart-wrenching at the start, because you're doing that at a point when the plant doesn't have as much growth as this one has. You're doing that nearly as soon as it produces a branch that looks like it's going to have fruit, i.e. a branch with flowers. You take off all the foliage beneath that. It's the same principle. You don't want the plant producing leaves it doesn't need. You want it focusing on creating the best possible fruit for yourself. So that's basically that, and you keep tying it in to keep it supported, because you don't want it spending its energy trying to stay stable. You want it to spend all its energy on making the little tomatoes lovely for you. Now, I have these spots here, and you can see them. They're worse on some of them. When you look this up, it can be one of like about 6 or 7 different things, but it's some kind of a fungus or a blight. And long story short, it means it's not getting enough air. So that can be because you hadn't enough ventilation in a greenhouse, or there's too much foliage around it. There isn't enough air circulating around the plant. I know what it is in my case. It's because I don't open all the doors enough in my greenhouse. And I'm not going to, because sometimes it's awful windy, and I'm more worried about the door coming off the hinges than I am about my tomato plant. So I don't really worry about that too much. It doesn't make, to me anyways, my tomatoes still are perfect, so I don't get worked up about these things. Look, you can be a total perfectionist about plants not looking totally perfect, but you're on a hiding to nothing doing that with gardening, because they're living things. They have flaws. There's problems, and you're not a full-time gardener, so there's going to be things that you miss, or it's gone too far before you see it, or whatever. I just let it go. If you're getting what you want out of it, pass no heed on the rest. So what I've said there is, you're taking away extra foliage, you're trying to get air around the plant, you're protecting it from wind. So mine's in a greenhouse. If it's not in a greenhouse and you have it on a patio, make sure it's a fairly protected kind of spot. And pinching out your side shoots, watering every day. They need a lot of water. Like, you're probably more likely to underwater than overwater, though. As soon as I say that, I'm sure that's what I'll do wrong next. But yeah, you are more likely, because if you think about all the water that's in a tomato, all that water needs to get up the plant, and if you've it in a warm place like a greenhouse, the water in the soil is evaporating as quick as it's going anywhere else. So you need to keep them well watered. So you are watering them daily. Actually, there's a gas meme somewhere on the internet of a woman kind of waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, oh, I didn't water my tomatoes. So yeah, I do I am careful about that. And then I'll just reach over and get this. Then, I don't know, this is Westland. Look, they're all the same, these tomato feeds. You put a cap full, so it comes with a cap full in a watering can, and water them with the feed in it once a week. And that's the feeding. There's nothing much more else to the feeding. Also, tomato food is perfect for flowers as well. So you don't need to have, Miracle-Gro or whatever as well. You can just use tomato food for all your bedding plants and hanging baskets. You don't need to have 2 different types of feed. You can if you want, like, but there's no need. Tomato food is perfectly fine for it, and tomato food usually is a little bit cheaper than the Miracle-Gro stuff, so that's a little tip. And I can't help them always on the lookout for ways to save a few bob. And that's basically that with my tomatoes. So I hope that that was interesting for you. I'm trying to think if I've forgotten it, and I don't think so. I think that's it all. So yeah, and it's great I didn't have to bend down because I'm still stiff from the spinning. so it's all worked out perfect this week. So have a lovely weekend. Oh jeepers, I better tie that in fairly quick. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll talk to you soon, and enjoy your gardens. Take care. Bye bye.